Welcome back, my fabulous students. This is Miss Mercado here. I'm recording another short video or lecture to help guide you in completing your homework 3A problems in Cengage. This particular lecture is the beginning of a brand new chapter, Chapter 3, which deals with Social Security taxes. Okay, so I hope all of you are enjoying my course thus far. Even if you're not majoring in payroll or human resources, this is a fabulous course because it teaches us how to calculate payroll or different payroll taxes, variety of payroll forms. And you might say, well, I'm never going to do this in my life. Well, maybe you're not, but you are going to get paid. Hopefully you have a job. So this particular course also helps in verifying that whoever's doing your payroll is doing it correct. Okay. I've had situations where I've worked for companies, I audit my own payroll stuff and make sure that everything is accurate, and I've identified mistakes in it, okay? So it's very important that you know how all of your taxes are computed, how your gross pay is calculated, your net pay is calculated, and it'll just provide you with knowledge and information in general, okay? So I'm super excited. I love this particular class, payroll accounting. I love it because it's very hands-on. And it's something that we are actually going to use, okay? There's some classes, like, for example, trigonometry. Unless you're a math major, it's very rare that you're going to use trigonometry in your normal everyday life. I'm not very good at math, so I wouldn't be able, to kind of identify myself. But payroll accounting, not only do I love accounting, but payroll in specific is just wonderful. It's to me, very fun to do, okay? So that's enough about me loving accounting. Okay, so let's get started with this particular short video. Make sure that before you try or attempt any of your problems, I know I sound like a broken record, but please read the chapter. Okay, it's very important that we read, okay, before you try any of your problems. Some of the problems from Chapter 3 have little videos embedded within Cengage. That way they help you solve them. I've gone over the problems and I've identified specific problems that do not have videos in Cengage. That way I can provide supplemental guidance to you. Okay. The rest of the problems, you figure them out on your own. But these are 3 of the problems for your homework 3A that I thought were important and a little bit tricky. So that way I can help you and guide you. That way when you're working on your homework, you won't have any issues. Okay. So let's dive in with the first problem. The first problem we have is problem 318, okay, in your textbook, okay? So, this problem reads, the biweekly taxable wages for the employees of Right Shop follow. Compute the FICA taxes for each employee and the employer's FICA taxes, okay? So, FICA taxes is comprised of 2 different taxes, the Oasdi and the HI, okay? So, the employees have to pay their portion or contribute for those 2 taxes, and then the employers have to pay as well, okay? So it's kind of like a match, okay? A certain percentage is paid by the employee, a certain percentage is paid by the employer. The employer collects both taxes, and then they have to remit payment, okay? So what does the employer do? They take away money from your paycheck, okay, as a form of a deduction, and then they put it into an account to hold it, and then they put their part in as well, the part that they are responsible to contribute. They put it into the account, and then when they're ready to pay the taxes, they'll just get the money out of that account and submit payment to the taxing entities. Okay. Now, before I dive into the problem, what I did here, in Excel, I love using Excel because it just simplifies it for me. When you're doing calculations that are like very repetitive, you can just copy them down. I hope all of you are familiar with Excel. This is not an Excel class, so I won't be teaching you Excel, but I'll show you what I'm doing. That way, if you want to kind of like try it on your own time, that is fabulous, okay? To me, it just makes life a lot more easier, okay? So, before I dive into solving the actual problem, I'm going to highlight some of the information from the actual book. This is copied straight from your book that kind of explains the different tax rates and how we calculate our taxable wages, okay? So, we have 2 taxes that deal with FICA, okay? We have the Social Security Act imposes a separate tax on employees and employers for old age survivors and disability insurance, which I am only going to refer to as OASDI. It's too long to be saying it. For OASDI benefits, and for hospital insurance, which is HI benefits. Okay. The 2019 tax rates for both the employee and the employer portions of the tax follow. Now, these rates and these bases fluctuate or change every year. Okay, that is why we always have a new book coming out for payroll accounting. Every new year, we get a new book because rates change, brackets change, a lot of things change in accounting and payroll. So we have to keep up with it. Okay, so for the employee and the employer OASDI, the rate is 6.20%. Okay, and we only pay taxes on $132,900 of wages. So you only pay taxes on the first $132,900. Once you reach that amount of wages that you've earned, the rest is not taxable. Okay, so you only paid on the first $132,900, which equates to a maximum tax of $8,239.80. Okay, so how do we get that? Let's see. We get our base, which is $132,900, and we multiply it by 6.2%. And that gives us the $82,39.80. Okay, that is the maximum we can withhold from an employee for OASDI taxes. Okay, now the HI taxes for both the employee and the employer, it's 1.45%, and there is no limit. You make $1 million, you're gonna pay taxes on $1 million. Okay, that one has no limit. So we need to have this information always available so we can know what your limits are. I don't expect you to memorize it. Just have it handy with you, okay? Now, some other information that is provided. It says the employer must consider the taxable wage base when computing the OASDI portion of the FICA tax, okay? The law exempts wages that exceed this base during the calendar year, which is the base is $132,900, okay? Once the OASDI taxable wage base has been reached, all payments made to the employee during the remainder of the year are not taxable. Okay? The wage base applies to the amounts paid employees in a calendar year and not to the time when the services were performed by the employees. Okay? The HI portion of the FICA tax is 1.45% withheld on the total earnings, plus there is an additional 0.9% on any wages over $200,000. So if you make over $200,000, then the HI rate is going to be 2.35%, okay, on anything above $200,000. Okay, the employer does not match the employee's supplemental HI rate of 0.9% on wages in excess of $200,000. So if you make over $200,000, you, the employee, are responsible to pay HI of $235. The employer does not have to pay. They're only going to pay 1.45%. So the supplemental tax is only for the employee. Okay. And they're just letting you know here that Social Security benefits increase each year based on the changes in the Consumer Price Index. Thus, the taxable wage base is increased also. So these figures here are continuously updated. Okay. So this is coming straight from the textbook. This is very important. We need to know our rates for OASDI and for HI, and they're the same for the employee and the employer, and our wage base. $132,900 is our cap for OASDI. Okay. So now, having said that, I went ahead and I copied this information from the problem into Excel. Okay. I'm going to scoot it over because I don't need that anymore. So here we're asking to calculate the OASDI and the HI for each employee, and then we are asked to calculate the OASDI and the HI taxable wages and tax for the employer. Okay, now what I did here is I created this table in Excel, and I went ahead and I put up here the tax rates that was provided in your book. Okay, let me bold this. So OASDI, I pay 6.2%. HI, I pay 1.45%. Okay, so what you have to do is you're just going to multiply your taxable wages In this case, let's do the first one for Manny Castro. $1,000 times 6.2%. That's going to give me $62. Okay. My HI for Manny Castro, it'll be $1,000 times 1.45%. That'll be $1,450. Okay. Now, you can do this manually for each of the employees and using a calculator. Okay. Now, I was an accountant, and when you work out in the actual industry, they expect you to be efficient. They expect you to do all of these calculations fast. Using a calculator is not very reliable. You can make a mistake, enter an incorrect number. So if you're using Excel, then just do the calculations within the actual program. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my calculation for OASDI first. Okay, this is a little Excel tutorial here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put an equal sign so I can start my formula here, my calculation. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply. Well, before I even multiply, I want to make sure that I round this incorrectly. Okay, most of these numbers sometimes run 3, 4, 5, 6 digits. So I want to make sure that I round correctly. Okay, so I'm going to use the round function to make sure that I round. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my $1,000 and I'm going to multiply it times my rate. Okay, and I'm going to close my parentheses. Now, because I am going to be multiplying every single row by 6.2, I need to anchor this 6.2 figure. That way it flows to all of my columns. If you don't do this, it is going to mess up all of your calculations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to my formula bar and I'm going to press F4. Okay? What F4 does, it enters a $sign in front of each of the cell references. That way when you're running your formula, that number stays constant. This particular cell will stay constant. So by anchoring, I mean I am putting a hold to this cell to where every time I have to multiply any of these numbers are going to be multiplied by this number up here, this percentage up here. So make sure that you anchor your formula. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my round, my FX here. It's going to open up this window and it's asking me, okay, you want to round to how many digits? I want to round to 2 digits. Okay. This is how it's going to look. It's going to give me 62.00. Okay. If you want to round to 3 decimals, then you do that as well here. Whatever number of decimals you want. For purposes of this class, I'm rounding to 2 decimals. Okay. I'm going to do okay. Now, once I have done that, I don't have to worry about doing any of those things again. I'm just going to get this little square here in the corner and I'm going to drag it down. Okay. And you see, it automatically calculates all of my OASDI taxes. If you click on the cell, what is it doing? It's multiplying the taxable wage times the rate. Okay, that's what it's doing. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for HI. Okay, I'm going to do equal parentheses. I'm going to do round, because I want to round. If you don't round, if you don't use the round function, you might be off by a penny or two or a cent or two, and then your answer is going to be wrong. So make sure that you always round. So I'm going to round. I'm going to get my $1,000. I'm going to multiply them by my 1.45%, and I'm going to close my parentheses. I'm going to go to my formula bar, and I'm going to anchor the 1.45%, which is P4. Okay, so I'm going to go to P4, and I'm going to press F4. Okay, that's going to enter your $signs. You can either press F4 or you can enter the $signs in front of each of the cell references manually. To me, pressing F4 is just a lot easier. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. And then I have to click the FX here and I have to let it know how many decimals do I want to round. I want to round to 2. This is what the result is going to look like right here. I'm going to do OK. Once I'm done with that one formula, I can just drag it down. Okay. So this is what I get. I get $457.89. for OASDI taxes, 10709 for my HI taxes, and these are the taxes that are going to be deducted from each of my employees' paycheck for OASDI and for HI. Okay, you can do this, or you can just do your calculator. Let's take Joseph for example. Okay, Joseph earned 1122. I'm going to multiply by 6.2%. That's going to give me 69.56564. I'm rounding to 2 decimals, so I'm going to keep it, this is a 4, I'm going to keep it at 69.56. Okay, let's do HI. 1122 times 1.45%, and that's going to give me 16.269. Okay, you have to round because this is greater, the third digit is greater than a 5. I'm going to round this up to a 7, okay, which is rounded here as 1627. Okay, so I hope all of you are familiar. I hope you all could follow what I did. Once you do the formula in the first cell, you anchor the amount that you want it to stay, not change. Then you just drag them down and they'll give you the amounts for each of the employees. Now, the next question is, what are the employer's OASDI taxable wages? Okay. Taxable wages means how much money did they pay the employees this pay period, this bi-weekly pay period. Well, my taxable wages are the $73.85.20. Okay, those are my taxable wages for both my HI okay, it's gonna be this cell right here. Okay, so your taxable wages are gonna be I don't like it like that. Let me center it. It doesn't let me center it. Okay, well, I guess. So your taxable wages is how much you paid your employees during this pay period. Okay, and I paid my employees $73.85.20. That is going to be your taxable wages for this pay period. Okay, now how much do I have to pay in taxes? That is the question that they're asking you here. How much is the employer having to pay taxes? Okay, so for that, what you're going to do is you're going to get your calculator. You're going to get the $73.85.20, and you're going to multiply by 6.2%. That's going to give me $457.88. Okay. So if you notice, there's a 1 cent difference between what's going to be deducted from the employees and what's going to be contributed by the employer. Okay, and that difference has to do with the calculation. Here, whenever you're calculating the employees' deductions, you do it by employee, each individual employee. When you calculate your taxes for the employer, you do it based on the total. Okay, very important. Employees, you calculate individually. Employer's tax, you calculate based on the total. Okay. Now let's calculate our HI tax for the employer. That would be the $73.85.20 times 1.45%. That's going to be 107.80854. So because the third digit is a 5, I'm going to round it up. So it'll be 107.09. Okay, 107.09. So this is the completed problem. The individual employee deductions for your FICA taxes, OASDI, and HI. And this is how much the employer is going to have to contribute for OASDI and for HI. I hope I didn't confuse you, but just make sure that you read the problem and the book. It gives you the rates here. All we're doing is we're multiplying the wages times the rate. Very basic mathematics. You can use your calculator, you can use Excel, whatever works for you. Okay. The next problem is going to be 3.4a. It says here, Ken Gorman is a matron at Carmel Diner Club. On February 1st, his gross pay was $800. Now, these $800 were made up of 3 days of working, 1 paid vacation day, and 1 paid sick day. Okay? He also reported to his employer tips of $900 for the previous month, and these tips are applicable taxes to be deducted out of his pay. Gorman belongs to the company's 401k plan and has 5% of his gross pay. Out of this, the gross pay is the $800 that he made, deducted each week as a salary reduction. Carmel Diner Club also provides a matching contribution of $40 into the plan for Gorman. This week's pay would have a deduction of OASDI tax and a deduction of a HI tax. So they're asking us to calculate how much OASDI and HI are we going to deduct from, Ken Gorman, okay? How much are we going to deduct, okay? So let me put it down here. Deduction for OASDI tax, and then deduction for HI tax, okay? So we need to figure out how much are we going to deduct, okay? So I'm going to start off by saying that this problem gives you a lot of information that you don't need or care for, but they're doing it to confuse you, okay? You have to analyze the information and gather the data that you need, okay? The rest, eliminate it. So like here, he got paid $800, 3 days working, 1 paid vacation, and 1 paid sick. Do I care? No, I don't care if you're paying him vacation, sick leave, or he's working. His gross pay is $800. That's all I care. So all I need to focus on is those $800, okay? Now, he also reported tips of $900 for the previous month. So tips are usually behind, okay? In this reporting period, he went ahead and he reported the $900 of tips from the previous month. He hasn't paid any taxes on that, and he needs to pay taxes on that, okay? So those tips that he earned are subject to, are taxable wages. So we need to ensure that we deduct the taxes. So we need to make sure that we add those $900 for when we're calculating our taxes, okay? Then they give you information about him contributing into the 401k and the diner putting in $40 of contribution. That does not impact your OASDI or UHI tax at all, okay? That's just irrelevant information that's given here. So the first thing we're going to do is we have to figure out how much did he make, or how much are his taxable earnings, okay? Well, I know that he earned $800 this week because he worked 3 days and he get paid a vacation and a sick day. He earned $800, and he also earned $900 in tips that he had not reported, okay? So the total of this is, let's do the math, 800 plus 900, that's $1,700, okay? Okay, now we are paying OASDI taxes. How much should be deducted for OASDI taxes? Well, the tax rate is 6.2%, okay? So I'm going to get my calculator, and I'm going to do my 1,700 times 6.2%. And that's going to give me taxes of 105.40. Okay, 105.40. That is how much OASDI is going to be deducted from this Ken Gorman, okay, in this paycheck. Now for HI, we're going to do the same thing. He made $800 in regular wages plus $900 in tips. That gives you $1,700. You multiply it times the HI rate of 1.45%. Let's see what we get. 1,700 times 1.45%. That gives me $24.65. Okay. The key here is to understand, first of all, identify what is taxable. Well, his gross pay is taxable. His tips are taxable for OASDI, and HI purposes. Okay? You add those two together and then you just multiply by the respective tax rates to get your tax amount here. This is a pretty straightforward problem. I'm going to save my work because I always like to save my work. Give me a minute. I'm going to get a piece of paper real quick to solve the next problem. One more. I'm back. Okay, and the last problem that we're going to go over. Okay, 3.7. Okay, so 3.7 says Volpe Corporation has only 5 employees and they all get paid $850 per week. Pretty straightforward. We are being asked to compute the total FICA taxes that the employer would withhold from the 5 employees each week and the amount the company would pay as its own liability for the employer's share of FICA taxes on the weekly wages of the 5 employees. So, whenever you hear FICA taxes, remember FICA is made up of 2 taxes, the OASDI and the HI. And combined, that makes up your FICA taxes. Okay. Now, before I go into solving the problem, I want to go over some information that's provided to you in your book. Okay. So, there's a slight difference between how we calculate the employee deductions and the employer's contribution of your OASDI and HI taxes. Okay. So let's read over the employee's FICA, taxes, and withholdings. Okay. So, it says, FICA requires employers to collect the OASDI HI taxes from their employees and pay the taxes to the IRS at the same time they pay their own tax. Okay? So the employer deducts the money from the employee, like I stated previously. They put their portion in, and then they are responsible to submit payments. Okay? The employer deducts the tax from the wages at the time of payment. So when they're cutting you a check or making you a deposit, direct deposit, they have to make these deductions. The amount of each tax to be withheld is computed by applying to the employee's taxable wages the tax rate in effect at the time that the wages are received. Okay, so when we calculate the employee's taxes, we calculate it on an individual employee basis. Okay, employee 1, employee 2, employee 3, employee 4, individual calculations. Now, when we are calculating the employer's taxes, it's different. Okay? In addition to withholding the correct amount of the FICA tax from the employee's taxable earnings, the employer must make contributions to the program as well. The employer's portion of the tax is based on the wages paid to the employees. The employer's taxes, however, are not computed on the wages paid to each employee, but rather on the total taxable wages paid to all employees. So that small change between calculating taxes at an individual level for the employees versus the total level for the employees will result in minor differences between the taxes of the employee and the employer due to rounding. Okay? So we have to be careful on this because sometimes students just get on a roll and they say, well, the employee has to pay this much, the employer has to put in the same amount. It might not be the same. There might be a 1 cent off or 2 cents off, and that's going to cause you to get the answer wrong. Okay? So, let's do the calculation here for the employee's total. Okay? So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to calculate the taxes for one employee. Okay? So, I know that one employee makes $850. This is the wages for one employee. Okay? I'm going to multiply that times 6.2%. Okay? That is going to give me, let me get my calculator here, $850 times 6.2%, $52.70. I know that each employee is going to be deducted $52.70 for OASDI. Now, They're asking you to get the total for the 5 employees. How much are we going to deduct from all 5 employees? Well, I'm going to multiply that by 5 employees. Okay. Let's see what we get. 5270. Oh God, 5270 times 5. That's going to give me 263.50. Okay. That is the total that is going to be deducted from the employees. Okay, 263.50. Okay. We're going to do the same thing for employees total HI. So I know that my employees is $850 wages per employee. I'm going to multiply. Let me change this little thing over here. I don't want to confuse you. Okay. I'm going to multiply it times my HI rate, which is 1.45%. What does that give me? Let's see. 850 times 1.45%. That gives me 12.325. Okay. That is going to be rounded to 12.33 because the third digit is a 5. Okay. Remember, if it's a 5 or greater, you round up. If it's a 1 through a 4, you keep as is. Okay? So it's 12.33. And I'm going to multiply by 5 employees. Okay? So let's see what we get. We get 1233 by 5. That will be 6165. So this is how much is going to be deducted for the 5 employees. Okay? Now we need to figure out how much is going to be contributed by the employer for OASDI and HI. Now the calculations are going to be different because for the employer, we calculate taxes based on the total. So what we need to do first here is we're going to get the $850 that we know. And I misspelled wages over here, guys. Wages. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the $850, okay, per employee. And I'm going to multiply by 5 employees, okay. So to get my total, how much am I going to pay my employees? Well, I pay them $850 a week. I've got 5 employees, so that means I'm going to pay them $42.50, okay. Once I got my total, then I multiply by my rate of 6.2%, okay. So $42.50 times 6.2%, it'll be $263.50, which in this problem, it's the same as your employee, okay. Now, we're going to do the same thing for HI. I've got my $850 per employee. I've got 5 employees. That is going to give me $42.50. And I'm going to multiply by 1.45%. So $42.50 times 1.45%. That's going to give me 61.625. Because the third digit is a 5, I'm going to round up to 61.63. Okay. So if you see here, my employees are going to contribute 61.65. The employer is going to contribute 61.63 based on the different calculations. Remember, the employee taxes are calculated on an individual basis. Okay. The employer taxes are calculated on the total. How much did I pay my employees in total? Once I get my total, then I multiply by my rate. Okay? Slight difference in calculations. Okay? So this is how we calculate each of the taxes for both the employee and for the employer. Okay? So those are the 3 problems that I'm going to go over for this specific homework 3A assignment. Like I said, make sure that you read the chapter. Make sure that you look at your Cengage homework. Some of the problems do have me short videos that show you how to complete them. Utilize all of the resources available. But if you do have questions, please make sure to either send me a Blackboard message or an email. Just make sure you reference what class you're in, the problem that you're working on, and include your step-by-step calculations so I can provide guidance as to what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Okay? So that is it for today. Until next time, we're going to continue cover chapter 3. So I'll be working on that recording so you can have it for your next assignment. Until next time.